Hello everyone. We have just begun the 3 weeks with Shivasar B'Tammuz being on Thursday. One may even say these last 4 months have felt like an extended version of the 3 weeks and what this time period represents. The amount of sickness, loss, and pain the world has experienced is something none of us have known in our lifetimes. It's interesting to think about the halachot and customs we adhere to during the 3 weeks. We refrain from making and attending smachot, getting haircuts, attending live concerts, and the stringencies only intensify when we enter the 9 days. It's almost eerie to think that all the things we are not allowed to do during the 3 weeks to commemorate the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash are things we have been unable to do since the beginning of the pandemic. Yes, we are fortunate to see parts of life returning to some version of normalcy, but backyard weddings and canceled bar and bat mitzvahs are not the norm. That is not how we are supposed to experience these momentous occasions. Each year as the 3 weeks begin and then we eventually enter the 9 days, I have to challenge myself to get into the right frame of mind. Fortunately or unfortunately, I think we are very easily able to focus ourselves this year. We are seeing unimaginable suffering all around us, thousands of people dying, no different than the words of the keynote we'll read in just a few weeks. Chazal notes an interconnection between Tisha B'Av and Leila Seder, between Pesach and Tisha B'Av. We read Eicha every year on Tisha B'Av, and we read the following words: Hispiani b'amromim haravani la'ana. He filled me with bitterness, sealed me with wormwood. These words, in particular the word b'amromim, is very similar to the word maror, the bitter herbs we eat each year at the Seder, commemorating the bitter lives that Bnei Israel had in Egypt. It's obvious that the suffering of Bnei Israel in Egypt is very similar to the suffering we read about in the keynote each year. It's also interesting to point out that the first night of Pesach and the night of Tisha B'Av always fall out on the same night. If Pesach begins on a Tuesday night, Tisha B'Av will begin on a Tuesday night. And it is not by chance that Pesach and Tisha B'Av coincide in this way. Hashem, creating such miracles to free the Jewish people from their suffering and enslavement in Egypt, left them with a recognition of how much Hashem loves his people. And that heightened their relationship between God and the Jewish people. And so too on Tisha B'Av, as we read the keynote and Eicha, we see the tragedies that happened to the Jewish people, and yet we feel this connection to God, and we know that God is still there for us, despite this tremendous suffering we have experienced as a people. It is that connection, the faith we found, which was renewed through our experience of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the leaving of Egypt, and the faith that we leave Tisha B'Av with each year, that this will be our last Tisha B'Av, that Mashiach will come and we will no longer need to suffer or commemorate our nation's suffering. One other connection I'd like to suggest between Tisha B'Av and Pesach is that each year in the Haggadah we read the following words out loud: B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam lirot atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In each and every generation, a person is obligated to see themselves as though they left Egypt. I want to think about the context of Tisha B'Av in the context of leaving Mitzrayim. What I mean is that we should be experiencing Tisha B'Av and what it commemorates, the loss of both Batei Mikdash, the same way we are instructed to feel at the Pesach Seder, Ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim, as though we left Egypt, as though we were there when the Batei Mikdash were burning down. When we think about the Beit HaMikdash and what it means to live without it, the word that comes to mind for me is homelessness. We are experiencing a spiritual homelessness. We don't have the Beit HaMikdash. We can't give korbanot. Yes, we have the Kotel and we have Yerushalayim, but we don't have the Beit HaMikdash. We are missing that holy experience, that holy home for us to gather in. That is one way alone to think about Tisha B'Av and the 3 weeks and how to internalize them. How am I experiencing the next 3 weeks and Tisha B'Av and the reading of the keynote in a way that I am able to say, yes, this is happening to me. Yes, we go through the motions, we fast, we wear the appropriate shoes, we sit on the floor, we spend time reading keynote and davening. But we also know that it's easy to go right back into our daily lives as soon as the fast is over. As we take our first bite at breakfast, as we change our shoes, are we really still feeling the loss of the Beis HaMikdash that we just focused on for 3 weeks? We should consider taking the message of what it means to be spiritually homeless and internalize it throughout the day and say to ourselves over and over again, What does it mean to be missing the Beit HaMikdash? Perhaps this year, as we mark another Shabbos of not congregating together as a complete community in our beloved minyan, we can internalize this message even more. I hope we will each work harder to ensure we do not have another Tisha B'Av next year, that we in fact are able to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu, to bring the Beit HaMikdash back. And how do we physically demonstrate this? The Rav had a tradition of placing his keynote in the Shemus box every year, because he had the ultimate faith that this would be the last Tisha B'Av he would experience, that Mashiach would in fact come. I myself am guilty of holding on to the same Kina book from year to year. I write notes in it and I revisit those notes. Maybe this is the year I say, no, this is going in the Shemus pile. And as I said earlier, it is often hard to actually get into the mindset of missing the Beit HaMikdash, an experience we never really knew. Even the keynote, some of them sound so horrible, it's almost hard to believe. And many are looking back on these last 4 months and thinking, is this really happening? How can this be real life? For those interested, I would encourage you to think about writing a personal kina of what these last few months have been like for you, and for our community, and for the greater world. Perhaps it will help shape the way you approach the next 3 weeks, moving it from mundane to a new spiritual level. May we merit the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash speedily in our days, and the refuah shlema for all in this world. Good Shabbos.